Good morning.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning.
This is where Wisconsin wakes up. It's Daybreak with Brian Noonan and Jamie Martinson. Here are your hosts, Brian and Jamie.
6:06 right now. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday morning. Oh, I almost caught myself. I almost said Monday because of the Memorial Day holiday, but it is not. It is officially Tuesday. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. Glad you're with us. If you want to get involved in the program, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Hopefully your morning is starting out a little easier than ours. See what happens when we take a day off? That's why I say we shouldn't take any days off. Poor Parker running around like a chicken with his head cut off. JB is sitting in some blurred room like in another dimension. We don't know where she is. Everything is going haywire.
I didn't have time to fix any of my settings, so I'll do that in just a moment. But we are officially in our closet, Parker. That's what this is.
Yeah, I really wish there was a better way to describe what this room is. This room really just is a closet.
It was supposed to be a podcast studio, is what it officially was supposed to be when this entire formation of Civic Media came. But it turned into a backup studio. So here we are today because we were having a few issues in our big studio. But
just a few.
Good.
I mean, it's...
It was one issue, to be fair. It was
one issue.
Well,
we just aren't sure. We did have time to troubleshoot it.
The one issue was the board didn't work and you couldn't hear anybody.
Not the board, just the microphone.
Just the microphone.
Because Frank and I could hear each other. We were having a nice conversation.
We could hear you, too.
Running around. Oh, you could hear us, too?
I think we could hear some stuff.
We could hear something. We could hear something
I'm not sure
happening.
if I had you. I had some computers.
Was it those crazy music nut jobs that come in on the weekend?
It might have been.
I don't know, man.
It might have been.
We gotta put them in the let them work in the closet.
That's right. That's
Leave
right.
the studio for the big kids and the big show. We need the studio.
Hey, at least we made it. That's the good part.
We're on the air.
We do have the podcast closet.
It's, you know what? This is every time there's a holiday, and I'm sure this is most people at their job. The first day back, when you get there, even though it's only one extra day, it's not like we were on vacation for 2 weeks. We had one day, and you come back and everything's all screwy, and it's like, oh, why did I even bother?
I know.
My wife will always, like today, she'll go, oh, I've got 1,000 emails. Why did I don't know. The whole office was closed. What were you going to do? Be the only one working? You worked yesterday.
I did a little bit. I end up working most days, but that's okay. I had 2 days off, so I took most of Friday off, Saturday, and then most of Sunday. So it was fine. It was fine.
But didn't you get up and do something yesterday morning on one of the network, one of the stations?
Nope. I slept in yesterday. I slept till a whopping 6 a.m.
Wow. That's my beef with this show. Not the people, not the hours.
Right.
The fact that now I'm getting up at that time. I'm getting up no matter what. It's like, I've become an old man. I'm going to start going down to the diner and having
I've talked about
donut.
this before, though. It's not so much that I have to get up. It's that it's so much easier if I keep with a semi-routine schedule.
True.
Because if I sleep in, because that's what would have happened. If I would have slept in yesterday till 8, 9 o'clock, then when I have to go to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock, there was no way that was going to happen. So I have to keep some sort of semblance of a schedule. And I'm sure people who do like those do those, overnight shifts, early morning shifts, I'm sure we're not alone in that assessment because it's rough. Getting up at 4 a.m., it's not normal. Let's just be honest. It's not normal.
No, and
I was really weirded out. I could see the sun most of the way here today.
I know.
It was really I thought I was an hour late. Honestly, I was so thrown off.
I get it. I was working out this morning and looking outside, and I'm like, it's so sunny outside, but it's good. It's good.
It's lovely. We're all here.
Yes.
Everybody survived. Did anyone do anything exciting over the holiday weekend?
We actually went out and were like adults and we're like big kids and did things. We went to the Michael Jackson movie.
How was it?
Actually, you know what? We are huge Michael Jackson fans. Whatever happened in the circus of courts and things. you got to separate the artist from all of that because he was incredibly gifted. What I will say is if you are a fan of his music, this is a great movie, but it's really eerie because Jafar Jackson, his nephew, it's like watching Michael Jackson on the screen. It is uncanny. His movements, his speaking voice, his singing voice, all of it is very, very a lot like Michael Jackson. So if you're a fan of the music and who he was as an artist, and it gives you good insight into, obviously, we've all heard about the stories of Joe Jackson and how he raised his kids, Iron Fist kind of thing. Gives you a lot of insight into Michael Jackson as far as his mindset. Big fan of Peter Pan, hence Neverland, the mansion. Really fancied the animals that he kept, even as a young kid, as his friends, not just his pets, but his friends, because he literally had no other people in his life except for his family.
His brother,
and you're right. And what I will say is that the entire movie is produced by the Jackson family.
All right. So
his son, his brothers, all of that. So yeah, it was.
So
good.
it's a glowing portrayal, and I've heard a lot of they don't get into any of the later stuff.
It stops with basically the Bad album. Is when he went on tour for the Bad album, but if you love the music and you kind of want insight as to who he was as a person and as a kid, and what made him so masterful in what he did, great movie. If you can, you want to put the rest of it aside.
Did the Pepsi commercial make an appearance in the movie?
Yes, it sure did.
Oh, it does?
Was a big portion of it.
Okay.
Yes, big portion of it, in fact.
All
Nope,
right.
big portion of that. And then on Sunday, we went to the Sassy Cow Creamery because I wanted a little ice cream. So we made our way to
Sassy
Bristol,
Cow.
and I got to play with goats. So I was very excited because they have goats and baby cows there. And
At the
I got
ice
to
cream
have
place?
Yes, and I got to have grilled cheese, and I got to have lactose-free milk with strawberry flavoring in it. It was
Wow.
such a good day. Such
You were being
a
an
good
adult
day.
acting like a child. That's great.
Right. I know.
That's very.
It's the
You know
best
what?
way to adult.
That was part of the plan for this weekend was we were going to go get ice cream. I never got my ice cream.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You gotta
Well,
get ice cream.
Getting
Brian.
ice cream is
Dude, I
always a
know.
good thing.
What can I tell you? It's things line up. They just didn't happen. I almost concussed myself again in the basement.
Oh,
So I did spend time going to the Dollar Tree and getting pool noodles that I'm now going to do my entire basement in pool noodles because these beams, despite I hit it once really bad. Thankfully, then the next time I went, next time I hit it, I had a hat on, so it took a little bit of the buffer.
Oh,
My baseball hat,
yikes.
but yeah. So
Yikes.
it's going to be fun to have, and I got really bright ones. So they're
like a
neon
party.
green, so I should be able to. All the beams will have neon green foam all over them.
That's a great
And,
idea, though.
I already have enough brain damage. I think we can all agree on that. That my head doesn't need any more severe blows, and I have hit it so many times in the last year. Because I have to duck and bend coming down to the stairs to get in there, and sometimes I clear it. Most times I clear it. Sometimes I don't. And when I don't, man, oh, man. Because I'm always moving at a brisk pace like somebody's chasing me. So when I hit that beam with the top of my head, there have been one or two times where I thought I was going down, literally, where it was like.
Oh, that's not good.
Nah.
I did have an incident this weekend that I want to share because I'm going to call this lovely woman cul-de-sac Karen. So let me explain. We moved into our house last year, late summer, early fall. And once we moved into the house, it's a rental, by the way.
Okay.
So with the caveat that we are to take care of the yard as far as the mowing and the snow, right? And the shoveling.
Sure.
When we moved into the yard, we realized very, very quickly that there were a lot of thistles. This house is 10 years old, and these thistles look like they'd been growing there with 2-inch bases for a very, very long time. And so last fall, right before it got cold, we went out and cut down the thistles. And it was a Saturday. It was actually a Sunday. I take that back. And we put them on our patio thinking, okay, next weekend we can take them to the dump. We'll get rid of them. Turns out that next weekend we got about 8 inches of snow. So the thistle sat out on the patio. And we had conversations over the last few weeks about these thistles, that we had to get them to the dump. Friday, part of my day was going to the local nurseries and getting flowers and mulch because it's not our yard, but it was really awful. And I decided I was going to invest very little money, but a lot of time to at least make it look a little bit better if we lived there. So I have all this mulch, I have all this soil, I have all these planters sitting in my front yard. I'm walking my dog Saturday morning, and this woman comes running out. She lives about 2 houses down from us and says to me, "Are you going to do something with those thistles?" And I said, "We're working on it." "Well, I don't think you are," she says to me.
Whoa.
And I said to her, "Okay, now
the ones
first
on
of all,
hold on. The ones on your patio, or are there
the ones
new ones
on the
growing?
patio, the ones on, it gets better though." And I said, "No, first of all, don't bother me when I'm walking my dog. It's the one time of the day I have earbuds in. They're solace. I don't need to think. I'm just out letting her do her thing, enjoying air. It is what it is." So it really bothers me when people do that to me or confront me on a walk. So right away I bristle up and I said, "Actually, we are." I said, "If you step off your front step and look down to our yard," which you could see, I said, "you'll see that we're actually going to work in the yard today because it's when we have time. We're very, very busy." And I said, "We understand that the thistles are a problem." She goes, "Well, what about the ones growing on the side of the house?" And I said, "Well, landscaping isn't really ours because," I said, "it's a rental." And I said, "We take care of the lawn." I said, "You'd have to call our landlord." "Well, I'm going to do that." And then she proceeds to berate me and tell me if we allow the outside of our house to look like that, she can't imagine what the inside looks like. This is a neighbor.
No,
So I'm
it's a person who lives down
boiling.
the street. It's the farthest thing from a neighbor.
I am boiling at this point. I did a fairly good job of keeping my calm. And so I walk home. I say to Corey, I said, "Man," I said,
We're
"let's
moving."
just work in the right." That was we just signed our lease, re-upped it for a year, so I'm stuck. So we work in the yard. It looks decent. Again, it's a rental. We spent about $175 for mulch and things like that. We're done. So Sunday, I'm out walking my yard. Beautiful morning. This lady and her husband are sitting outside on their patio. And
Can
she
I ask
looks
the
at
age? Like, are these really old folks?
65, 70, probably in
Okay.
that range. This is also the same lady who last summer shared with me. She babysits her kids, grandkids every summer, hates it. But, whatever. I
right.
don't judge. So they're sitting out on their patio, and I walk by, and I see her, and I said to Aspen, because we had a full conversation at this point, I said, "Should we go around the block?" I said, "Or should we just tough it out?" So she sniffs on. So here we go. I'm like, all right, I'm a big girl. I can
She
do this.
doesn't care.
No,
Aspen
she doesn't care. She doesn't care. So we get by the house. The cul-de-sac Karen stops me and says, "I see you took my advice and cleaned up." And I looked at her and I said, "No, ma'am, I actually didn't." I said, "As I stated to you yesterday, it was in our weekend plans to clean up the outside of our house," which we did. I said, "But if it makes you feel better to think that you had something to do and save the neighborhood from the evil attack of the thistles," I said, "you go right ahead on your Memorial Day and think that."
Wow.
I said, "That's fine." I said, "You have a wonderful rest of your weekend." And her husband he's mortified. He looks at me and goes, "You too."
Wow.
Cul-de-sac Karen. There you go, folks.
Oh, I kind of had the same conversation, but not about my yard. These two guys bought this house across the street, and they have a ton of land. Well, they're doing a lot of art. So anyway, Joey comes over, and we're talking, and he says about my new neighbor on the other side, "I hope they do something with their lawns." I was like, Joey, I can't worry about that. When we come back, who do you think is the future of the Democratic Party? It's not cul-de-sac Karen. We'll try to figure that out here. It is Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
6:22 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. Glad you're here. No phones right now, but there will be phones in a little bit.
Yeah,
It's very
text.
complicated. But if you want to text in with your answer to this, who do you think is the future of the Democratic Party? 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Because even though we had the day off yesterday, and a lot of you did as well, the world kept spinning. And Cory Booker was on CNN's State of the Union on Sunday. And he said that the party, quote, desperately needs new leadership. Wow, coming from the second in command, he said. But I think you're right. He said that days after the Democratic National Committee released their much-anticipated autopsy, which is getting a lot of blowback from Democrats at the top because it wasn't really from the party and everybody. But anyway, Cory Booker said we need to focus on the people, and the Democratic Party desperately needs new leadership, and that's what's exciting me about this cycle. It's not only new leaders emerging, but a new vision for our party. He pointed to 3 Democrats who he thinks represent the future of the party: Senator John Ossoff of Georgia, Texas Senate hopeful James Talerico, and Roy Cooper, the former governor of North Carolina and current Senate candidate. So I would agree. We all make fun of Chuck Schumer and his strongly worded letters and the fact that the Democratic Party has been led by the same old white folks for a long, long time. And there is, especially after the last election, there were a lot of things that needed to be fixed. But again, I look at who the front runners are for, and we always look at the president because that's going to be the big one in a couple of years. But you also have to look at your state senators and representatives, and who's going to step up in the short term. Because how long have the Democrats been talking about needing new leadership and needing new blood in the party and reaching out to younger voters and that kind of thing?
I mean, even before President Obama was elected,
yeah,
they were talking about it, and then Barack Obama came along and inserted basically what Cory Booker is saying here, and it felt like maybe there was a new wave in the Democratic Party, and then it's just basically fallen right back into the same old.
It's Pelosi and Schumer, and and then even Joe
the
Biden.
And even the candidates they've run, Hillary Clinton. I mean, Joe Biden, as you just aforementioned, those didn't really do much to excite the base. And Kamala Harris, even though she was younger and maybe a little different, I think a lot of younger voters in particular saw her as just part of the same old guard coming from being Joe Biden's vice president, right? And she didn't, and as we've talked on this program, she didn't really do herself any favors by basically admitting she was going to just run Joe Biden's government. That didn't really play well with a lot of younger voters who the Democratic Party needed to bring around in the 2024 election.
Even if she had, she wasn't prepared to run for president.
No.
But even if you're vice president anyway, you're always in the back of your mind, aren't you, thinking about what you would do different? It's like any job. You're always thinking about what you'd do different than your boss if you ever got the shot. So you can understand a little, but there's also a lot of blame on both sides there. But the point is, okay, so who do we look toward? Because I'm looking at now the people who are being talked about for presidential candidates. Same old, same old. Maybe a little bit younger. They're not 80. Pritzker's I think a little older than Newsom, but neither one of them are that old. It's not like the Democrats are going to run an 80-year-old again.
Right. I mean, hopefully they don't do that again and make that mistake. We see the Democrats tend to shoot themselves in the foot quite often. So hopefully they don't go that route. I mean, there's been a lot of names that have popped into the conversation between Josh Shapiro, who is the governor of Pennsylvania. We've also heard Andy Beshear pop into that conversation, the Democratic charismatic young governor from Kentucky. We've also seen Pete Buttigieg jump into that conversation. So who knows at this point? And I think at this stage of the game, if you're the Democrats, you're just trying to see what the midterms bring, right? And there is a lot of energy around the midterms, and there are some really great new, fresh candidates who are running for state government and to represent the state on the national level. People that we haven't necessarily heard of who are separating themselves, even though, like Talerico, they call themselves Democrats, they're completely separating themselves from what people think. Yes, from what people think of the Democrats. And Talerico has said it himself. If you're a fan or paid attention, he's like, my family was a Democrat because they believed Democrats were the best for all people. They've lost their way. He's essentially said that, but he is hopeful that they can get back to that, which is, I think, what a lot of people who tend to vote democratically are hoping for.
We'll see. speaking of Tellerico, tonight's that the runoff with Cornyn and is it
Yes.
Braxton? No, who's
Paxton.
Paxton.
Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton.
Ken
Yep.
Paxton. Who got the president's endorsement, and that is what seems to have set the Senate on a more let's break away from this orange guy's policies.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see, because they say if Paxton does win the runoff, they're worried that that's a big plus for Tellerico.
Yes, absolutely. And I think Texas is always going to be interesting, right? And, you go back to, especially in Texas, a lot like Wisconsin, really has some blue roots, right? It really does when you look at Ann Richards. And then suddenly at some point it just kind of lost its way and it became a very Republican voting state. Wisconsin obviously is more of a swing state, but I think there are some parallels that you can draw. And by the way, here in Wisconsin, if our legislators are paying attention, voters feel very much the same as Cory Booker right here in Wisconsin if you look at recent polling. They want a government with fresh thinking. They want stronger accountability. They want younger leaders. 61%, and that transcends all parties, Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
Well, we've seen how it's gone so far. Might as well. What's the worst that can happen? He said as he prepares to talk about a potential deal with Iran based on a war started by our current regime. But that's all to come after this. It's Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
Wisconsin wakes up here. Back to Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
6:35 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are back in our main studio if you're watching on the live stream.
What is going on? This is this day
One
has
life's many wonders.
Parker fixed
I know,
it.
but
That's
this
what's
is the
going
most
on.
Monday Tuesday I have ever experienced in all my
True.
Tuesdays. This is
Parker
crazy.
is a tech genius. That's what happened this
Yeah,
morning.
thank goodness for Parker.
Right?
Thank goodness this exact thing has happened before and messed us up before.
Parker, you are earning your minimum wage this morning.
right.
You're worth every penny.
We're getting our
Every
steps
penny.
in. Look at us.
Every
We're
penny.
like energized.
I do appreciate the steps.
We've been moving
I will say
around
that.
already a lot. It's good.
It was Dollar Dog Day at the ballpark yesterday, so
Ooh.
I gotta walk off those dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're
Did you
going
dollar dog it?
I Dollar Dogged it.
Okay. We're going to talk about
Yeah,
the
we're
Brewers
I want to
later.
get in.
I also
We got
did
something
that.
coming
I
up.
also did
Okay,
that.
all right. That was going to be the big question, so we'll get into that later this morning.
We will, and now we can take your phone calls.
Yes.
So 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. We're love to have you as part of the program this morning, especially with how confident are you that there will be a deal reached with Iran? Because it depends on the hour, depends on the mood swing of our tangerine in chief. I don't know, but as of at one point yesterday, and still, I guess, this morning, there is an emerging deal with Iran. However, we're also bombing them again. So
Defensive bombing. That's what it is. It's defensive bombing. That's what we're told anyway. Whatever
are
that
you sure
means.
it starts with a D and not an aw? It sounds very offensive.
I'm just
to me
going
if you're-
with the news reports as well.
I know.
That's all we got this morning.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you haven't heard, good. That means you were having fun over the weekend and you weren't paying attention to this kind of thing. The United States and Iran appear to be closing in on a deal to end the war and open the Strait of Hormuz, which is where the current bombing is happening. The president said yesterday that negotiations were proceeding nicely while reiterating his warning that fighting would resume if no deal is reached. It's not clear when or how the deal might be finalized, not only to us, but to, I think, the people involved. So details come from two regional offices and a U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity. An Iranian delegation led by their parliament speaker traveled to Qatar yesterday as part of talks, though it wasn't immediately clear what would be discussed. Is there anything about this administration that seems thought out other than just reacting and just going from momentary whims where 1 minute, you know what, we're having great talks. Iran is just about ready to, we're going to bomb them. Easy, psychopath. You got to pull back a little bit.
It's very up and down, and then they wonder why when they get in front of the press, people question the moves, the motives, what's actually happening, because nobody really knows, right? I mean, I don't know if anybody really knows. I don't understand I don't think any of us really understand the motives behind any of it, or the question still remains, what is the overall plan? Right? Because I think that for a lot of people, that's just it. Is this a long, drawn-out war? We've seen this happen.
Well, so far, we're almost at 3 months.
Right? I mean,
with no real end, because every time an end is there, or any time he gives a deadline about something, he backs off. And again, going back to, my favorite conspiracy theory, which I again blame this show, not only for my weird sleep schedule, but for me getting more and more into conspiracies. Every time he announces a peace plan, there's huge volatility in the oil market.
Yeah.
Somebody's making a lot of money on these, because why make these pronouncements and then pull them back right away? I don't know, just a thought. But I don't know what we're supposed to make of this and how anything gets done. It doesn't seem like the left hand knows what the right hand is talking about, right? Because the president will but he doesn't talk to anybody, it appears. So he makes these pronouncements on social media, and then everybody else has to scramble to try to figure out, okay, are we doing this? Are we not? Hey, look over here. We're giving away all this money. Oh, look over here. We're still bombing, even though we're in ceasefire talks, or we're in a ceasefire and we're having peace talks, but we're still bombing. The whole country is just a whirlwind of garbage that we're trying to figure out, and nobody has a handle on any of it.
Right. I mean, how many delegations have we sent over there now? At least 2, 3?
And I thought we weren't sending people over there anymore because they could call us if they had a problem.
Well, it turns out that usually when you want to end conflicts like this, other countries would prefer to do it in person.
Most likely
under a phone call. I mean, but these are the things that the administration is still trying to figure out, right? I mean, they're still trying to figure out that it's better to send somebody in person than it is to just, make a phone call or send out a social media post, which is not how you actually, do foreign policy.
That's not diplomacy.
No.
But this is what you get when you hire a narcissistic reality TV guy who is used to running businesses with his name on it, where everybody has to kiss his rump nonstop. And he thinks this is how you do it, that everybody in the world is going to treat him like a subservient employee. And he is finding out that that's not how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, he seems shocked by it.
Right.
Just because he has the army or the military to back him up, he's like, well, they're going to do what I say.
I mean, and we've talked about it on this program. This is why you need people with experience in your state departments. This is why you need people with experience and knowledge of how the Middle East actually works, because they're the ones that you go to and draw from to help to come up with actual policy to end this war. This is why you have them in the U.S. government. These are experienced people. They've been doing this job in most cases for, in some cases, decades, literally decades, because this is what they do. And this is what happens when we don't have those people to lean on in these instances. And we think that the knowledge is better held within the administration.
Well, Jamie, let me run some of the things by you that are proposed in this deal, and let me ask you to see if it sounds vaguely familiar to you. Like maybe you've heard this before somewhere. All right, so here's what's known so far: the war would end. A fragile ceasefire is held since April, but after that, the war would end. The Strait of Hormuz would reopen gradually. Now, the stated objectives of the U.S. and Israel were to dismantle Iran's nuclear program, curb its missile program, and end its support for armed proxies. But Iran had the straight, and as he likes to say, they don't have the card. Well, they did have the cards. So now, under the emerging agreement, the strait would gradually reopen in parallel with the U.S. ending the blockade of Iran's ports it imposed on April 17th. Iran would give up its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Now, their nuclear program and international concerns over it was, what everybody said. Oh, they're going to have a weapon. They're going to have a weapon. When, under the potential deal, Tehran would agree to give up that stockpile, according to regional officials. What's missing, though, are a couple of big things. The U.S. and Israel entered the war wanting to change the regime. That's not going to happen. Iran has said there will be no regime change here. And as for Iran's past stated aims during negotiation, there appears to be no mention of any withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region or for reparations for the damages the war has caused. So the first part, what we seem to be getting from this, Jamie, does that sound familiar to you at all?
Well, yes, these are the same talking points that we've had since the start of this war, and it's the same thing that the president has parroted every time he's gotten to a podium to tell us how well this war is going for the United States.
But doesn't the agreement sound like
well, yes, and it sounds like what President Obama basically already had in place before this particular war started, even though the administration tried to tell us that Iran was not heeding that negotiation. Well, it turned out they were. But this is a deal that this president made. Therefore, it's a better deal because he made it, and it wasn't made by Barack Obama. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
That is what it comes down to. It's I couldn't have Obama's deal in there. Now, he's proposing some other thing, and he talks like he's got everybody on the same page. And then it comes out from other leaders, Iran's leaders and other leaders in the Mideast, that it's almost as if it's almost like he's in a fantasy land. He doesn't have a grasp on reality because he says the polar opposite of what every other leader says. How can they all? Are we to believe, and I guess I know the answer to this, but I'll still put it out there. Are we to believe that he's the only one who's correct and he's the only one who's telling the truth because he's a master businessman and all these other leaders of these other sovereign nations are lying just to make him look bad because they're all saying the opposite of what he says?
Well, he never wants to look bad. I mean, and honestly, I don't
get a
think
mirror.
I don't think that it's playing out well with voters right now either, because reports and national poll after poll after poll show that this war has hurt this president politically. It has. His approval ratings have dropped. There is growing frustration, even among Republicans, about the conflict, about the economy. A lot of Republicans say this president ran on ending these types of conflicts in the Middle East, which he did, right? He blamed Kamala Harris. He said Kamala Harris was going to be the one who got us into war. That's right. There's even recent polling that shows that his approval rating is now right around 34%. And
out of 100?
Out of 100.
Huh. That's pretty low.
People are upset with the inflation and the fact that the economy is reeling over this. In Wisconsin, it is the same story. I mean, 61% of voters disapprove of this conflict, and that is the one thing right now that is bridging all voters on all political sides. Now, Republicans are a little bit more still in favor of this. But overall, you're finally bridging the political gap with this particular war.
All we needed was an unpopular president and an unpopular war. That's what we did. Who does that? Oh, that sounds like Nixon. But what am I going in the way back machine?
Yeah, but Congress did the right thing then. They're not doing the right thing now, unfortunately.
No. And even though it's going to be, I think, a rough couple months the more the Senate starts to rebel. But as long as Mike Johnson is there, he's safe.
That's
with the
just
House.
it. I mean, and
Nothing will happen.
we've discussed that. The House is really where the turmoil is. The Senate they've pushed back a little bit more. Ultimately, they still usually go the way of the president, but there are certain things that they have chose not to pass. There are certain things that they've halted. Mike Johnson in the House is really where the epitome of the problem falls. And if you can't get the House to start proceedings or to start actually moving forward, it doesn't matter what Senate does.
Stalemate. That's why it's important to vote in November. So vote in November. This story is just fun, and it brings back a topic that we did when Jamie was out one of the weeks. So, Jamie, I know you're sad that you missed our last Beaver conversation.
Well,
Beavers, parachutes, and Idaho. What do all those things have in common? We will tell you next on Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
From Lake Superior to Lake Michigan, this is Wisconsin's Morning Conversation. Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
6:52 right now. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today on the Civic Media Network. Lots of sunshine, a little humid, and temperatures hovering close to 90 today.
Wow.
In portions of the state. Wasn't it like 50 last week? It was like 50,
Yep.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's cold.
All right, thank
Are
you,
we
Mother
going to
Nature.
talk about the bumper music or no?
I'm what show is that from? It's
Leave it to Beaver.
driving me
Leave
crazy.
it to Beaver.
Leave it to Beaver.
Yes.
Oh, that's it. I should have.
Good
known
work,
was a good
Parker.
time.
That
was
was
pretty
good.
clever.
Because that is
Nicely done.
so beyond your time.
Yes, it is.
Yes. He just Googled Beaver.
It's one of Parker's favorite programs. when
I
he
know.
gets
Please-
I
out.
knew
Beaver
Leave It to
song.
Beaver.
Please don't just Google Beaver
I will
on
not
the
be just-
computer
no.
that work.
No.
Thank you. I don't want to have to explain that to
I've
IT
got-
later.
Ward,
I've got old TV
Ward,
shows.
you're being hard on the Beaver.
Andy Griffith, Hogan's
There you go.
Heroes, Leave It to Beaver, Gilligan's Island. I got a couple.
Do you know any of those
All right.
shows? Have you ever
Hogan's
seen?
Heroes I know very well.
Okay.
Andy Griffith I know okay.
All right.
Leave It to Beaver I think I saw 1 or 2 episodes. Gilligan's Island was
That's
on before
impressive.
Hogan's Heroes, so
That-
I saw a little bit of that.
That's impressive
Ah,
for
okay.
somebody all of 22. All right.
Yeah, not bad.
All
Not
right.
bad.
TV.
Well, if you follow this program, and really, why shouldn't you? We talked about a conservation effort here in Wisconsin to bring beaver back because beaver had been under attack in Wisconsin. And so we wanted to make sure that the beaver was saved, and the DNR has done a great job. And then I saw this story because who knew that beaver was so endangered around the country? There were a lot of trouble. This story is fascinating to me. In 1948, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game pulled off the strangest wildlife relocation in American history. They parachuted beavers out of airplanes into Idaho. That's right. It's an airborne beaver invasion. It's raining beaver over Idaho. So now they couldn't transport the animals by truck or pack mule because it was slow, dangerous, and incredibly stressful on the beaver. And everybody knows
This is practicality.
it is. You have to treat beaver gently, Jamie. You know that, and you have to not. You
Yes.
can't rustle them up. You can't get them all irritated.
This is true.
Because nobody wants an irritated beaver.
That's right.
So they. Sorry.
Come on.
I
Land
had
the
a little
plane. You can
coffee.
do it.
So they, after World War II, the housing boom had pushed the beavers into rural areas. So all as they're building houses, the beavers are getting further and further away. They had to get the beavers near their wetlands because they're crucial.
Mm-hmm.
We all know
Yes,
for
beavers
land
are
and
crucial.
beaver. That's true. So they couldn't get them by land into the Chamberlain Basin. They tried traditional relocations. That was a nightmare. So officials would trap the beavers and drive them overnight in trucks because that's the best way. You trap a beaver, you confuse them, then you take them somewhere else. Then they loaded them into heavy crates onto horses and mules for exhausting multi-day treks through the steep wilderness.
Wow.
Then they designed the beaver bomb, which for the one and only time in this story, I am going to say, that's not a euphemism. So they designed a custom wooden drop box attached to surplus World War II parachutes. The crate needed to be tough enough to survive the flight, yes, designed to open automatically upon landing. They took one beaver, Geronimo. He was the test beaver.
Geronimo?
Geronimo the beaver.
Because you're diving in. Get it? That
Yeah.
beaver was diving. So an older
got it.
male beaver, nicknamed Geronimo, became an unlikely hero. He endured multiple test drops.
Aw.
He was the beaver who kept getting dropped. And then he would just he'd land, the crate would open, he'd walk around, then he'd climb back into his crate, and he was ready for another go-round. I just
Wow.
thought the ingenuity because who would have thought that?
Who designed the tiny beaver parachutes?
Well, a man named Heater is his
Okay.
last name.
Okay.
He is Heater.
Heater. Yeah.
H-E-D-E-R?
Heter.
Okay.
You know, I don't.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It
This is
doesn't
in
matter.
1948. I
Because
didn't.
I mean,
I didn't talk
you
to him.
have to equip the beavers with something special. I mean, you just don't strap on like a normal like parachute. They're
No.
small.
No.
So you
You
gotta
got to
have
tend to that beaver. You got to make sure that beaver is well kept.
tiny little parachutes and tiny little beaver vests and all sorts of things to make sure that they get to the ground safely.
Can you imagine being that beaver the first time? Poor Geronimo.
Poor Geronimo.
He's in a box, and then they just drop his box, and he falls to the ground. And then, but then he loved it so that he wanted to get back in.
Wow, it's like
Because what
Did he?
Yeah.
it's like.
Well, he climbed back in the box, Frank. What
He
can I
might-
tell you?
Well, did he have a choice? I mean,
He probably had a concussion, and he was just confused and wandered around.
it's like when you keep
So-
hitting your head on beams in your basement.
But imagine being in rural Idaho in 1948, and all of a sudden, out of the sky, you
Or
think you're being
beavers.
invaded, and it's like, oh no,
Beavers.
it's raining beaver.
Is this
Hallelujah?
Is this
it's
the
raining
same?
beaver.
Is this the same concept as kamikaze dolphins with kamikaze beaver, or was it much gentler? I'm just
If the
asking.
Yeah.
beaver had been equipped with some sort of weaponry,
Okay.
that would have been, you know.
Okay.
I like that post World War II was like, what should we do now?
Yeah.
We've got all this
That's in the
equipment
middle of the
laying.
night after a couple scotches.
We've got all
Yeah.
this equipment laying around. It didn't get used. The troops are coming back
We
home.
made a lot of stuff. Kind of bored.
American conservation at its best because they
Wow.
had to get the beavers back into their wetlands to keep the environment going. And they call beavers ecosystem engineers. So
Mm-hmm. Beavers
beaver
are.
is important.
I find them fascinating. I really do.
I do
Go
too.
watch the movie Hoppers. Talk all about it.
I need to. It came out on streaming. I want to see it.
Frank with his cartoons. All right. We got to get rolling, but we'll be back with stuff you need to know. This is Daybreak. I'm Brian Noonan.
I'm Jamie Martinson. It's 6:59 right now. You are listening to the Civic Media Network.
Across the state of Wisconsin, Daybreak with Brian and Jamie is back.
7:06 right now. Thank you for joining us this morning. Good morning if you are in Appleton and Oshkosh listening on WISS, in Madison listening on WMDX, in La Crosse on WLCX, or Hayward. We won't forget about you in the Northwoods this morning on WBZH. Thank you so much. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning. I'm Brian Noonan. Glad you're with us. 855-75-CIVIC is how you get a hold of us. 855-752-4842. Especially today, if you call and be nice to Parker, because he's had a morning
It's been a
already,
rough
and it's
day.
only 7 o'clock. It's just think of what the rest of the day will hold for you, Parker. It's gonna be
Probably
All-
meetings about what happened this morning.
All up here from it all goes up the hill from here. It's all good. Everything's
Yeah,
good
just-
from here.
just the start of the week. But it is a short week.
It is.
And even on short weeks, though, there is still you need to know.
It's a wake-up call in more ways than one. Time for some you need to know.
Well, we talked about this a little, kind of, because we talked about the potential ceasefire, or the potential deal with Iran. But now it is reported that U.S. and Israeli jets struck Iranian vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and other targets, hours after the president had suggested that negotiations with Tehran over an interim deal were progressing. I guess not fast enough for him or something. The attack took place south of Larak Island in the Strait of Hormuz, with several Iranian personnel killed. That, according to Iran's state-run news bureau. Trump earlier said negotiations between the U.S. and Iran over an agreement to extend the ceasefire and reopen the strait were, quote, proceeding nicely. American forces hit missile launch sites in Iran and boats trying to place mines, according to U.S. Central Command. The strikes were defensive and intended, quote, to protect our troops from threats posed by Iranian forces. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters during a trip to India that talks with Iran could take several days, adding that Trump would either agree to a good deal or make no deal at all.
Well, that's kind of what's been happening since the beginning. So that would check. That would be right on par from the beginning of this war. Other stuff you need to know, bringing it back to Wisconsin. UW-Madison is anticipating a smaller cohort of international graduate students on campus next fall. That's according to the university's director of the graduate school. The dean of the graduate school, William Karpus, said at a campus meeting last week that fewer international students have applied to graduate programs, and the university has also admitted a smaller number than in previous years for next fall. The drop in international student applications at UW-Madison during this admission cycle is an issue that every large university institution is confronting, according to Karpus. The decrease in applications comes as the Trump administration has instituted a series of policies and actions targeting international students, such as new visa restrictions, travel bans, and also a crackdown on countries like China, which bring in large numbers of foreign students to schools like UW-Madison. Now, experts say that those efforts, along with a looming rule change that limits the time international students can study in the U.S., are stirring fear and hesitation to apply to American universities. Foreign student enrollment this spring at universities in the United States dropped by 20% from last year. That's according to a recent report from the NAFSA, the Association of International Educators, which is a nonprofit that promotes international education. Well, I mean, this makes perfect sense with the policies that we've seen. I mean, it's hard to say, oh, let me go to this country, let me study, let me take my talents there, when you're literally not welcome.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that on your way to or from campus, you could be detained.
Right.
And, you're even with a student visa, that would not be enough for some people. It's a shame because the income brought in from international students to these institutions is a nice big chunk of their budget every year. And it also increases a university's status and just the overall environment of a university when you have people from different nations, different cultures, all studying, and you're getting the smartest people if they're coming in for grad schools. So these are people that you would like to educate here, and yes, maybe some of them will move back to their homes, maybe some of them will stay here, but either way, everything's going to be fine.
Well, and you also look at the fact that these are talents that you can't just duplicate always in the United States, right?
No.
These are skill sets. Sometimes they are people who do things much differently or have learned a different way to do things than we're doing them in the United States, which is a broader discussion, but it leads you back to where is all that information then going? It's not coming to the United States. It's being shared in other countries, which is unfortunate.
Well, let's keep it in Wisconsin for some more stuff you need to know. Governor Evers is asking President Trump for federal disaster declaration following severe storms and flooding across Wisconsin in April. State officials estimate the storm caused more than $27 million in damage to homes, businesses, and public infrastructure across 19 counties and the Oneida Nation. Flooding and severe weather included tornadoes, hail, straight-line winds, and major rainfall events. Janesville alone estimates roughly $10 million in infrastructure damage from what officials described as a 500-year flood event. Flooding also prompted evacuations in communities along the Shaktan and including Shaktan and New London. Local officials said federal disaster aid is critical because many communities cannot absorb the repair costs on their own. Outagamie County leaders said both Tony Weed and Tammy Baldwin have expressed support for securing federal recovery assistance. The request now goes to the White House, which will decide whether to approve federal recovery aid. And we've seen this before. If only we had a Republican governor who bought into all the conspiracies and the election fraud, then we'd probably get that money right away. We probably wouldn't have had to ask for it. But now with Tony Evers in the governor's seat, we'll see if the president actually grants this money for American citizens, both Republican and Democrat, or tries to play games with it.
And I think Mark Wayne, I never want to give the administration too much credit. Mark Wayne Mullen has been better as head of DHS in making sure that all states are getting the aid that they need. Whether that will...
Well, he got out of the way as opposed to Christie Noem, who had to sign everything that was over $100,000. Mullen seems at least smart enough to get out of his own way.
I mean, if you're the president and if you're this administration sitting here just a few months before a midterm when, as we talked earlier this hour, your approval ratings are at 34%, I don't know if you just let a certain subsect of voters just wallow and have to come up with this money themselves to get these things fixed. But nothing ever surprises me.
He doesn't think of anybody else. He told us he doesn't think of Americans' financial situations, and affordability is made up.
Nothing surprises me at this point. I'm just saying a logical human being would probably just sign it, no questions asked, so that people can get what they need. But of course, we've also seen this administration hold funds from very Republican-leaning states.
Yeah.
So
maybe his buddy Tom Tiffany can put a word in.
You know, if that's what Tom Tiffany can do for the state of Wisconsin, then kudos to him as well. Because this is money that's needed, right? I honestly, at this point, who cares how it gets here? Just sign it so people get some relief and small businesses can rebuild. The big story, though, this morning, this is one that actually went a little under the radar last week. The Environmental Protection Agency, speaking of this administration, announced nearly $2.9 billion nationwide to help states replace lead water pipes, including $94.3 million for the state of Wisconsin. This funding comes through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, supported by the bipartisan infrastructure law passed in 2021. About $46 million of Wisconsin's funding will support disadvantaged communities through grants or forgivable loans. EPA officials said the funding will help communities identify lead service lines and replace aging pipes from curb to tap. Federal estimates show Wisconsin still has more than, this number is astounding to me. 343,000 lead service lines statewide and nearly $12 billion in drinking water infrastructure needs over the next 20 years. The state has faced lead pipe challenges for decades, with some municipalities continuing to install lead service lines even into the 1970s, long after other states stopped using them altogether. Lead exposure, of course, remains a major public health issue. We've heard these stories time and again, especially coming out of Milwaukee. Children especially affected because it can cause long-term developmental and learning problems. State data shows that nearly 5% of Wisconsin children under the age of 6 tested in 2024, so not that long ago, had lead poisoning, with rates reaching around 20% in some Milwaukee neighborhoods. EPA officials said the agency remains committed to a federal requirement calling for most lead pipes to be removed by 2037. The funding announcement comes as the president has proposed major cuts to the EPA revolving loan funds in the agency's 2027 budget proposal. Wisconsin may also qualify for an additional $852,000 in redistributed federal lead replacement funding if the state applies by September. You got to imagine that that paperwork is probably already being worked on.
I hope so. It's not going to be like those ballots that were delivered late.
No.
Who was supposed to fill out the papers?
I mean, the fact that we still have at least 92 communities in this state who are connected to lead pipes, though, is absolutely crazy to me, especially in 2026.
And when you go back to that number, you mentioned the date in the 70s. They were still here in Wisconsin, still putting in lead pipes in some communities. And I'd love to hear the justification other than cost.
Yeah.
Because if it was just cost, that's still not a good enough reason when, as you mentioned, all these other states had already, we knew lead pipe was not good.
Right. I do find it interesting, though, that at the same time that's been happening in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee has had so many issues, Madison actually became a national example of what success in basically remedying lead pipes can look like. In 2001, Madison made a very controversial decision at the time to replace both public and private lead lines entirely, and they became the first U.S. city to eliminate all lead service lines from the water system. Obviously, the decision is now viewed as a model for communities nationwide. At the time, though, with the cost and the infrastructure changes, you can imagine that people were like, what are you doing? But I mean,
a little lead's not going to hurt them.
I can't imagine, though, at this day and age that we're still talking about lead in our schools and in our pipes and in our water. And it's actually kind of crazy.
We finally got rid of it with paint. You don't hear too many lead paint stories anymore.
Right.
Thank goodness.
Right.
But, you know.
I mean, this is a pretty critical phase, though, don't you think?
I know it started all over. There's communities doing it all over the country, and it is a huge job to go from curb to the tap. The mains have to change. Everything's got to change. It takes a long time. It's a lot of work. It's very expensive. But it's something that has to be done, especially if you're living in one of these communities. If you're one of these 343,000 lead service line serviced people, you need clean water. And again, to come back to the fact that we're still arguing over clean water, is amazing to me. Well, we got to get rid of the lead pipes, but we still got this PFAS. We don't need to regulate those as much because which is worse, lead or forever chemicals? Well, neither one. How about we just try to get the water clean?
I mean,
well, they have bottled water, don't they? No, stop.
Green Bay and Stoughton also, by the way, have been really good at removing.
Very good.
Yeah, Milwaukee, though, still racing to get that money.
Well, we are racing towards swipe or stay because Frank has had an extra day to come up with a fantastic collection of pop culture stories. We'll find out what those are after this. It's Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's 7:22 right now, and it is time for Swipe or Stay. We're going to set the politics aside for just a few minutes and dive into what's happening in the world of celebrities and pop culture with our senior producer, Frank, drinking his tea this morning. If you're watching on the
coffee.
It's a teacup.
Ooh, wow. Shots fired of Frank's China.
But it's lovely.
I like it.
It's
it looks
very
big enough to
fancy
be.
It is lovely.
That's
lovely.
lovely.
Pinky out, Frank.
Pinky out. There we go.
You go.
It is very lovely if you're watching on the stream. But yes, our senior producer is going to join us, and good stuff today, or it was a holiday.
Well, we're coming off the holiday weekend, and the AMAs were this weekend. So how do you think it is?
I was going to say, I've seen a lot of headlines that I have not read stories to because I never want to spoil these for myself.
We'll see. We'll get right into it. If you're new here, I'm going to read some pop culture headlines, and Brian and Jamie will have to decide whether they want to hear more about the story or if they want to swipe on to the next one. In the event of a tie, Parker gets to be the tiebreaker. Moving on. Colbert returns to late night.
Oh, I didn't actually go into this story purposely. I have friends who live in the area, so I know about it. So stay.
I didn't read the stories either or watch any of the clips.
So did anybody else watch Stephen Colbert's final episode for The Late Show?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I thought it was so good. I thought it was
great.
so
Fantastic.
well done. So as Colbert said goodbye to the Ed Sullivan Theater last week with Paul McCartney, which was awesome to have a Beatle shut it down with him.
And that picture he gave Stephen Colbert,
Yes.
of
It's so
the
cool.
Beatles on Ed Sullivan, it was great.
It was amazing.
If you haven't checked out his final episode, I urge you to do so. But also, if you're a Colbert fan, there's another episode you can check out over on his
love
YouTube
this.
page. So, just 23 hours after doing his final show at the Ed Sullivan Theater, he went over to Monroe, Michigan yet again and did the public access show only in Monroe, which he teased and he had a joke about it on his final episode.
He did.
And the punchline was he actually followed through and he did it.
Yeah.
Some special guests included Dumb and Dumber star Jeff Daniels and Jack White. Both are Michigan natives. There was a little bit of controversy because CBS was handing out cease and desists like candy for anybody that was publishing clips of the show on YouTube. They've stopped doing it since and said they were doing it to protect Stephen Colbert
No,
and
you weren't.
his YouTube channel.
You shut it down. Go on. Let him go on with his life. You did everything that you needed to do. My gosh.
You got him. You got him. Okay.
Fun fact about Monroe, Michigan. I drove through Monroe every single day for 5 years when I worked at iHeartRadio in Toledo, down 75.
All right.
There's a nuclear power plant. That's about it.
I was going to say, I was waiting for the fun part of that fact, Frank.
Oh, there was.
All right.
We got it for you.
Okay, thank you.
City shuts down playoff watch parties.
I'll stay.
Yeah, why? Ooh, where? So many questions.
The New York Knicks are celebrating a sweep of the Cleveland Cavaliers in the conference finals in the NBA, but fans couldn't celebrate outside of Madison Square Garden. Here's the deal. NYPD said 6 people were arrested after the last Knicks home game, which was on Thursday.
Yikes.
Brawls broke out and fans leaped over police barriers and through glass.
Oh, geez.
And it was an estimated crowd of 6,000 people celebrating the win outside of Madison Square Garden.
Well,
All watch parties have been canceled for the NBA Finals for the New York Knicks in order to protect the public and the venue from further destruction.
I mean,
This is why we can't have nice things.
yeah.
New York certainly can't have nice
New York
things.
can
And-
never
No.
have nice
And here's
things.
the thing, there's beef right now between hardcore Knicks fans who are out there
Yes.
celebrating because they're pointing the finger at influencers that are hopping on the bandwagon and causing destruction for clicks for their own channel, which is very New York. It's very Hollywood.
Of course.
It would
And
happen
it's
on
not
either
even, they
coast.
didn't win the final
No.
yet. They still have to,
it's a-
they still
yeah,
have
it
to
was
win
just
the
a
final.
conference.
Well, this happened. This wasn't even to clinch the conference
Right.
finals.
Right.
This
Thursday
was
was just, they just clinched it last
Well,
night.
they just won a
It's
game.
New York sports.
I was gonna say it's New York
been a minute.
sports, and when your two
It's the
football
Knicks.
and when your two
It's the
football
Knicks, yeah.
when your football teams are the Giants and the Jets, you latch on to whatever else is good happening in the world. I mean, let's be realistic. So
Look, man, the Giants got 2 Super Bowl wins off the evil empire of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Those fans are fine. If you're a Jets fan and a Knicks fan,
yeah, it was a long time ago though. Now
you know what? Maybe you deserve to cause just a little
That's
bit
right.
of destruction.
That's
But wait
right.
till you win it all.
Right.
Then do like Chicago did. Flip cars, set them on fire. Let's go crazy.
Be feel
We
like
have time for one more?
We do as soon
Okay.
as it lets me sign back in.
Oh, Google.
It just hit me with a 2-factor authentication too, which it never does.
Oh, God. This is,
I want to
can we just pack up? Can we just stop for the day? Call it a day? We
real
tried.
quick.
All right,
I've
here we
had
go.
this story on here for a while
Okay.
now. This happened last week, but I do want to talk about it. See if you
Swipe.
guys. Bruce Springsteen clip goes viral.
stay.
A video has been making the rounds since last week in which Bruce Springsteen was walking through the crowd of one of his concerts singing 10th Avenue Freeze Out and walked right past former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who had his hand out for a high five. And Bruce Springsteen looked at him and kept on walking.
Keep on walking.
Oh,
However, do you have the rest of the story?
Go ahead. What is the rest of the story?
No, you do it. It's your show. It's
That's
your
all I
segment.
got. Go ahead.
Springsteen came out later and issued a statement saying he did not see Chris Christie, which I find highly doubtful. Chris Christie is easy
You
to
don't
spot.
miss Chris Christie.
No.
As a fellow big man, I'm allowed to say
Scooter and the big man. Yeah,
you don't miss Chris Christie.
Chris Christie is a large human, but Springsteen said he would never diss Chris Christie. He is a longtime fan and the former governor of New Jersey, and he would never diss him. But it appears
sure, Jan.
Would he?
That's swiper stay.
Okay.
Thanks, Frank. All right, we'll talk about your celebrations of Memorial Day. Jamie was up. Jamie, was it Sunday? Jamie's got a lot of thoughts. A lot of communities did a lot of things. We'll get to all of those after the news. This is Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
Now back to more of Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
7:35 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. 855-75-CIVIC is how you get a hold of us this morning, 855-752-4842. How did you celebrate or observe Memorial Day? Celebrating seems, and this is we talked about this prior to this, it's the same kind of thing as on some other holidays where it's like, we're observing it. Are we celebrating? Well, we're celebrating because we had a day off, but why do we have the day off? And it's all semantics, but you know what we mean. How did you observe and or celebrate Memorial Day? For me, it was very simple. I did opinions of some people be damned. I went out and I hung up my flag because it's an important day. And I did take a minute to think about why. And it was funny. About 11:30, I was running to the grocery store, and we live just a couple blocks from this big ice cream parlor, and it's been there forever. And as I drove by, there were a ton of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in their uniforms who were getting ice cream after they had gone to one of the many remembrance ceremonies that was happening in the area. And there was one that happened across the street from us and all over. And so, yeah, I took a minute to remember. And that's not me going, oh, look how great I am. That's the answer. That's my answer to our question.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll be honest, we didn't get to any celebrations or services yesterday. Being here in Madison, if you end up over by one of the lakes, they have some crosses of fallen and some vets that have been sitting under a canopy and talking with people. So yesterday afternoon, or actually Sunday afternoon, I should say, as we were out and about, we made our way over there. And Memorial Day is always an important holiday for Corey and his family. I've mentioned on the show before, his dad was a Vietnam veteran. We lost him a few years ago to COPD, which was an onset of Agent Orange exposure when he was serving in Vietnam. And just, making sure, and his grandma was also a VA RN for multiple years. So his grandpa was a veteran. So his aunt was a veteran. So there are deep ties to the military in his family. Alicia chiming in over on YouTube this morning saying she attended a memorial service in Green Bay hosted by the United Patriotic Society. She spent time with some fellow veterans. And so a great way to celebrate the day, or spend the day, I should say. Green Bay actually had a large memorial service yesterday, Brian. And we're going to take a look at some of the different observations that happened across the state. Because this year in particular, one of the things that a lot of local folks noted is how big the celebrations were this year compared to years past. And is that because of the current state of war in Iran? Is that
I would say it brings it home.
Yeah.
And we've been fortunate that the number of fatalities so far has been low. Now, one loss is more than enough, but in terms of other wars, we haven't lost as many service members in this one. But I think it does bring it front of mind now. All we hear about every day now is the war, and we know, some people may be going only because their kids who they never thought were going to be deployed are being deployed, and now it hits a little closer to home. Or, if you're older and you had a relative who was killed in action, having another war again brings it brings it more to the forefront, and you want to get out and share those times. I know I drove by the one that was down the block, and boy, people were even dressed nice.
Yes.
And I was, I remember when Molly would play in the band for the remembrance ceremonies, I would be going after work, and I would just be in shorts and a t-shirt and stuff.
Right.
But you're still standing and all that. But these people, I saw people in suits and ladies in dresses, and it was very reminiscent of what I picture, like older times and when these things started, like people really putting a lot of thought into it.
Is it also, I wonder, this year because it is America's 250th celebration? So I'm wondering if there were also people who just felt a little bit more pride, like they actually needed to be there this year, maybe pay a little bit more attention. I think for a lot of people, when you look at what's happening politically, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it feels like we need to probably pay a little bit more attention to the democracy of things, the people who have given their lives. And, I think there are certain times in history when you do feel a little bit more patriotic, right? Like, I think there are times, and I think this is one of them. But I had mentioned Green Bay because Alicia's comment, but in Green Bay, they hosted a Memorial Day ceremony at Duck Creek Cemetery, and this was, she went to a different one, but this particular one was organized by the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Veterans and community members were there to honor service members who died. Attendees with military family connections said that the ceremony served as a reminder of sacrifice and service. And obviously for them, it is going to have a deeper impact. But I thought that was kind of one of the resonating factors that you heard coming from all across the state yesterday. And organizers said the freedoms of that Americans enjoy come from those willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. Waukesha debuted something new this year. It was their celebration was replaced by their traditional Memorial Day parade was replaced with a quieter ceremonial march this year that focused on remembrance and sacrifice. The Allied Veterans of Waukesha and VFW Post 721 ended the old parade just a couple of years ago because of declining participation and volunteer support. If you've ever put on those events, Brian, you know that it takes a lot of people. A lot of people. And this,
it's not just, hey, show up and walk down the street with us.
That's right. And so this year they did this march, and the people participating carried photos and tributes to fallen family members through downtown before a flower ceremony along the Fox River. Families reflected on the lasting impact of war and also honored loved ones killed or missing in action. And community members said that this type of event really reinforces that Memorial Day is about honoring sacrifice, not just a holiday weekend. We have Julie in Wausau.
I was just
Go
say,
ahead. Go for it.
No. You could, because you're gonna talk about Wausau and what they did, and Julie texted in and said, we honored the U.S. soldiers killed in the war in Iran by displaying their names in a tribute front of a large cemetery in Wausau. And that was not the only big thing that was happening in Wausau.
Yeah, and if you want to share with us this morning how you commemorated Memorial Day, 1-855-752-4842, 1-855-75-CIVIC. Obviously, there were services all over the state. We're only going to highlight some of them, but if you went to something in particular moving, please let us know. We'd like to talk about that, especially in the midst of things that are happening in the world. But in Wausau, as Julie rightfully mentions, community members there gathered at Restlawn Memorial Park for a Memorial Day ceremony that honored the fallen members and military members and their families. And then vehicles traveled along the Patriot Avenue of Honor in Weston before this ceremony began, which I think is really cool.
Wow, yeah.
Veterans and families shared stories of military service, of the sacrifice, the patriotism with younger generations. Organizers say this particular event is a reminder of generations of military military service and the sacrifices made to protect American freedoms. They also include a reading of veterans' names as attendees bow their head in remembrance. I will say, as we talk about the generations, there are stories coming out of Racine, or of Janesville, excuse me, of a 99-year-old World War II veteran who made his way to the ceremonies yesterday in Janesville. So you talk about bridging the gaps in the generations and the people over time who have sacrificed and given. I think that pretty much tells you everything you need to know when a 99-year-old veteran makes their way out to a ceremony like that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's powerful. And for somebody who, never served, I mentioned my dad, and he never talked about his service in Korea. And my uncle served, two of my uncles served, but I never did. But to see somebody who has those memories and lived with it, and I'm sure Memorial Day for him holds a whole different meaning, because I would imagine if you're a World War II vet, there was a really good chance that somebody you served with died while you were in action over there. And that's when I can't imagine what goes through their minds, even at 99, to just go, how, I survived, my buddy didn't.
Yeah.
And people forget. And so I think it's also good for kids to see that and just see these are real people, and some of them come back and they live long lives, and some of them don't get to come back.
Yeah.
And so we got to remember the ones that didn't get to come back.
I always think it would be fascinating to sit down with somebody of that age who has served to have a conversation about what they're seeing now. And if they're paying attention to it, or if it's just one of those things, I served my time, and I'm glad other people are serving. So I always think those conversations would be fascinating to have.
It's a shame that so many, because of time, World War II vets are gone. I would love to hear their perspective on having fought for a lot of the things that are now being taken away here, and see, all the thousands of people who died for that fight. And now we see it just being given away.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In lacrosse, even though they had a change to their parade route, it was a very successful parade. The parade followed this new route because of ongoing downtown road construction this year. That pesky road construction will even get the best of us. But all 4 lacrosse high schools participated with traditional bands and performance appearances. Veterans and longtime attendees said the event remains an important tradition honoring fallen service members. And then we do have to issue an apology here at Civic Media. Taps Across America it's an organization. They've got a website. You can go check it out. But they actually invite musicians nationwide to perform taps at 3 p.m. local time on Memorial Day to honor fallen service members. So this was a tribute, Brian, that started back in 2020 during the pandemic because it was an alternative to canceled parades and ceremonies. And organizers say thousands of musicians of all ages and skill levels now participate each and every year using a variety of instruments or vocals. The nationwide performance coincides with the National Moment of Remembrance established by Congress back in 2000. Well, Memorial Day obviously traces its roots to the Civil War era tradition of decorating the graves of fallen soldiers. And so organizers say the event is meant to ensure the sacrifices of fallen military members are never forgotten. And yesterday, here at Civic Media, we did not know about this 3 p.m. local time taps. Otherwise, we would have played taps.
I have never heard, until you said we were doing this statement. I have never heard of that.
Yeah, we had never heard of this either. We actually, kudos and thank you, because several of our stations across the state on the local level did receive calls from people upset that we were not playing taps. It was not done deliberately. We did not know that this 3 p.m. local time was a thing. So thank you for calling us. Our sincerest apologies. It was not done on purpose. It was because we did not know that this was a thing. But you can guarantee that it is in our threshold and our notes for next year.
Yeah, from here on out, you will not have to, it will not be missed. All right, This one, I want to talk to Parker. I think he may have been one of the hooligans involved in this story. The Brewers are cracking down on the shirtless. How do you feel about fans taking their shirt off at Brewers games? Why is it a big deal?
Local news, community stories, and the conversations that matter most. Now, more Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 7:52 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it. We hope you are having a great start to your Tuesday. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan, 855-75-CIVIC. Do you care if people take their shirts off at a Brewers game? Seriously, it seems to be. Now, I had never heard this. Parker, you were at the Brewers game yesterday.
I was.
You are a young man who enjoys going topless. Did you First of all, explain this whole tarps off movement, because that's what this whole thing comes from.
Sure.
Tarps off, and you seem very to be a backer, a tarps off proponent.
I am a proponent of tarps off. Yes, tarps off. I think started last college football season and it has carried over into the MLB this year, where a group of guys, typically college age-ish guys, will go up to basically the highest seats in the entire stadium. They will take their shirts off and wave them above their heads because it's fun. And it is.
It sounds very unobtrusive, non-offensive, silly.
You're not hurting anybody.
Goofy.
No. Yeah.
And you're not, if you're going way up to the cheap seats, you're not really blocking anybody's view.
Right.
You're just up there
waving
having
your
fun.
shirt around.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, Friday, the Brewers were not happy about this.
Right.
But that's where social media posts from fans attending the weekend Brewers game against the Dodgers had photos of increased security presence in the left field corner of American Family Field and noted a marked increase of ushers checking tickets. The implication was that the team was looking to diminish a recurrence of the grassroots practice of shirtless fans gathering in this stadium's uppermost reaches. Okay, why? Well, to the Brewers, the Brewers did say this Sunday, we're very supportive of tarps off that we see at stadiums around the country, including American Family Field. It being incredible, it brings incredible energy and fun to the ballpark. For the last 3 Brewers games, including today, it has been a challenge for space. Near sellouts have limited available blocks of seating for this to take place. Those sections are near capacity with fans who have purchased seats there, and that leaves little room when open seating is not available. We will limit access to the area. Come on now, Brewers. We love you.
Well,
But
I'm going to say during
let the boys go shirtless. And some of the ladies if they want to.
I guess. I mean, I think that gets a whole different topic of conversation. I mean, if you were at the Dodgers game, though, with the blowouts there, were you really hindering anybody's views? You probably weren't.
Would anybody have cared? That
might have been the most exciting thing happening in the stadium, to be quite honest. Now, you were at a game yesterday.
Yes.
Parker.
I gotta ask.
As a matter of fact, I was like 3 sections over from that, just as my seats in general.
Okay.
So, yes, I went tarps off.
Oh, all right. Is there video?
There's video.
Video
There
or
we
it didn't
go.
happen?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, Parker, please share your tarps off
It
video.
is on my Instagram story right now, actually.
All right. Frank, go check it out, because I know you and Parker follow each other on Instagram. You can go check it out.
It's fun. It's just, I don't know. It's just a group
Yeah,
of dudes. It's
it's
dudes
fun.
being dudes. I
Right.
don't know.
And you're at a
You're not-
ball game.
It's just waving the shirts over your head, right?
Yeah. You do a
And
bunch of
screaming
chants.
stupid stuff.
Yeah, we were just doing "Let's Go Brewers," chanting player names.
Yeah.
I think there was a "Let's Get Sexy" chant once or twice.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Why not? Who doesn't want to get sexy at the ballpark
That's right.
or anywhere? The
That's
deli,
right.
church, doesn't matter.
Always important. Probably not tarps off at church. Just saying.
Probably not at church. If I had a
Who
guess.
knows?
Depends on
Listen.
what church you go to, of course.
Depends on the
Exactly.
church. Maybe if there's a balcony, if it's one of
There we
those,
go.
if it's a big church, maybe up
Yeah,
there.
by
you
the
can.
organ loft.
Yeah, there you
Tarps
go.
off of the
Yeah.
organ.
You can do it.
I see, this is where it might surprise people that I have no issue with this.
I think it's fun.
I think it's fun.
I'm not
Now,
doing it, but if you want to do it at, a game, go for it.
Right. I mean, I've been at plenty of games where people have their shirts off. It's not something I would ever do just because of my physique. And there's some people that I think should keep their shirts on because of their physique. But I don't, if you want to sit, I don't understand it. Like this, I understand because it's a short-term, fun little demonstration. It's the guys who sit in the sun out at a game without their shirts. I'm like, dude,
or in the freezing
you're not
cold.
any cooler.
Like when the Packers fans will do it and they go to a 30 below game. Now you're just stupid. My also other favorite part of that is they always, at those types of moments, they always paint their chest with the letters. And then somebody goes to the bathroom or to get a beer, and then it doesn't actually spell the word anymore.
Oh, rats. So how is this organized, Parker? Do you just know, or do you see one guy over there start it and everybody runs over?
It just happens. It just happens.
It's like organic.
Suddenly,
yeah,
there
but I'm
are a
wondering
bunch
how
of guys
how
there.
they decide which. It's always
late. I don't know if necessarily there's an ending associated with it, but it's always late because if you're going to leave, and this is my thinking, because I get what the Brewers are saying about you don't want to have people in other people's.
Yes.
Yeah. It always happens late, and in my mind, that gives the opportunity for people who are going to leave early to have already left.
So you're not in their way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but there's a lot of sections way up in the upper decks. How do they know exactly which one?
You go as
that's what I'm asking.
It is as far away as possible, basically. Okay. Every time I've seen it, it has been as far away as possible from home plate.
Okay, Mr. Plow King over on our YouTube chat has a question. We might need Frank for this. Do they do cup snakes at AmFam, or is that just a Wrigley thing?
I have not seen that at AmFam before.
Okay, what is a cup snake?
It is when you take everyone's. So what you know when you get one of those plastic beer cups that are kind of taller.
Yeah.
You put them all together, like you collect all of them, and you make a big snake of the cups, and it goes from section to section.
And it can span it's in the bleachers of Wrigley Field, and it could span the length of the bleachers if they allow it. Usually a worker comes down and breaks it up, and then they get booed mercilessly.
We have we have somebody over on YouTube saying no cup snakes, but they have Hoombas? What? I'm learning so
I believe
much.
Is that a word we can say on the radio?
I don't know. I'm hoping so because I just said it.
Well, we've already said it. And with that, we will go talk to legal and come back either with an apology or we'll just move on with some stuff you need to know. I'm Brian Noonan. This is Daybreak.
I'm Jamie Martinson at 7:59. It's the Civic Media Network.
Want to join in on the conversation? Call or text 855-75-CIVIC. Now back to Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:06 right now. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you're in Eau Claire, listening on 93.5 The Tap, or in Wausau, listening on WXCO, or in La Crosse on LCX, or Wisconsin Rapids on WFHR. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday morning. My name is Jamie Martinson.
Good morning, wherever you are. I'm Brian Noonan. We are so glad you're here. Tell your friends. Did we forget?
What?
Today's an
It's our 100th
auspicious date.
It is.
Isn't it?
It is. It's our 100th show today.
Total.
And I just figured that we didn't care, so we weren't celebrating.
I don't, but as I was starting to tell people, hey, tell your friends to listen, I was like, wait a minute. We've been doing this a while. But then I
pop in here real quick.
Okay,
Hi,
all
Frank.
right.
Frank.
We are going to tease a game
All right.
on Friday.
Oh,
we're going to
okay.
end on a fun note.
Love it.
Oh.
We are going to play Who Said It,
Ooh.
where I'm going to read quotes from all of us on the show.
All right.
Oh no.
And we have
And
to,
we have to guess who said it.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
All right, that's gonna be
Is this
fun.
like listener participation? Can our listeners
They
chime in too?
absolutely can.
All right.
Maybe we could, but before Friday, maybe we come up with a prize.
Ooh. All right.
If we do, we will let everybody know.
We'll let everybody
Okay.
know. We don't.
But
we
that
don't
is
know
the
now.
game.
All right. We'll talk after
Wow,
the
all
show.
right.
All right. You might want to stick around here. Because as we
Yeah,
get
Frank,
into
this first story,
Yeah.
Jamie added to our you need to know, and it's right in your, I know how big a fan you are. So let's start. It's 8:08. Let's start.
If this is what I think it is, I'm going to be pretty pissed.
it is.
Yeah, well,
All right.
that's good. You're
That's
fueled
good.
on hatred. Banana Ball returns to Milwaukee. The Party Animals set for 2026 games at AmFam Field. Party Animals are bringing Banana Ball back to Milwaukee for games June 6th and 7th at American Family Field. The games, Frank, are part of the inaugural Banana Ball Championship League season, featuring 6 teams touring 75 stadiums across 45 states. Banana Ball combines baseball with entertainment, whimsy and fun, delightful entertainment for all ages, including unusual rules, crowd interaction, stadium performances, hatred by old geezers. Organizers expect the league to draw more than 3 million fans just this year alone.
Wow.
Games also airing on ESPN, ESPN Plus, not relegated to the Ocho, as some would have you believe. The Party Animals last played in the Milwaukee area during a sold-out appearance at Franklin Field in 2023. Some tickets remain available after the events lottery closed. Check out Brewers Tickets Events Banana Ball to see remaining tickets and purchase parking.
There you go.
Frank.
How do you feel about this?
Are you buying them for all of us on the show? Are we having an outing?
I think if you guys want to go and waste your money on this, you can go right ahead.
It would be the most enjoyable Saturday evening or Sunday afternoon in the history of baseball.
Here,
Parker would go
I'm
completely
literally
tarps
off.
off, bananas on.
That's right.
Banana hammocks, no tarps.
You know, tarps
Wow.
off would fit in very well. At
Oh, 100%.
Banana Ball.
Oh, yeah.
Because you must have your torso painted yellow when you go tarps off.
That's right.
We'll look like minions.
No, I know.
That's right.
I know. Look at, like, you're seething right now. If you're watching on the stream,
Oh, I
looking at
can't
Frank's
wait.
face, he's just seething even having this conversation.
I'm genuinely looking to see if there are tickets left, and I'm not seeing any.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Really?
There were some
Yeah.
last night. There were a few left, but obviously the media press releases
You
came
can
out
get
about
suites, but that's
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Oh, we
So-
have a suite, don't we?
not a suite, just the upper decks.
Oh,
But
rats.
anyway, but
Not yet.
I mean, it could be a lot of fun. People are excited, except
It'll
for
be
you,
great.
except for Frank.
Cut it out, Frank.
You guys have fun. I'm
The
sure it's
local
great.
beach coconuts
Bring the
and the party
kids.
animals. Well, these aren't even the bananas, actually. These are, 2 other teams, but
Yeah.
they're playing banana ball. I like the party animal logo, though.
It's good. It's super fun. Yeah,
I also like the coconuts logo.
yeah. It's going to be a good time. You're the only one not on board with fun. Are
Yeah,
you a
Frank,
fun killer?
Frank doesn't like fun.
I
Jamie.
am. My team's lost 9 straight. You think I want fun?
I don't know.
Frank is
I want
fueled by hate.
wins.
The Brewers got blown out by 11-3 the other night by the Dodgers.
Care about them.
Wow.
It's like here, I use this in my professional life too. When people talk about other shows and other stations, I don't care about other shows and other stations. I care about this show and these stations.
Okay.
That's true.
I don't care about the Brewers
I get it.
until like September.
All right.
Wow. All right.
All right.
Boy,
All right.
Frank.
All
It
right.
still doesn't justify the no banana.
hatred.
Are you going to Banana Ball? No.
I can't get tickets, Frank. I'm on the lottery list
No, you're
because
not.
they've got. I signed up last year. I put my name on the list.
Well, it's like Packers season tickets. You'll never get them.
Right, so I'm waiting. I'm waiting to hear. They haven't released the ones for Chicago yet. I'm praying that I get. Yes, I will even.
If you
I will even go to
entered
Wrigley.
the lottery and didn't get the tickets, please drop it in the chat. Feel free to text us. I want to know what the ticket buying experience is for this because I've heard a lot
Okay.
of people have had issues with it.
Okay.
No.
Is that also part of
I
your
have-
beef with them?
No,
Oh,
I wouldn't.
okay.
I would never try to
He just wants
move
to-
on. There's
All
more
right.
to talk
All right.
about.
There is more
There's
to
more
talk
stuff
about.
we
do this
need to
for
know.
minutes.
Oh, I'm so excited about this one.
Frank, how do you feel about competing in other events?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, all right, good. Because New Berlin 8th grader Ethan Robert is not an analphabet, but he knows how to spell it, Brian. And that has earned him a spot at the National Spelling Bee competition this week. And alphabet, in case
I'd
you're
rather
wondering.
go watch the spelling bee for the record.
Of course, it's exciting. Spelling bees are awesome. And alphabet means a person who is illiterate. That was the winning word at the Badger State Spelling Bee Championship in March. Arnav Vempati, an 8th grader in Middleton, came in 2nd place at the state championship and will join Robert in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
today through Thursday as they compete in the Scripps National Spelling Bee. I love it. Now,
Frank, get us one of these kids for next week.
oh, they're going to be brilliant. They're always so smart.
I know.
Vempati's word, olfactory, is olfactory. That is the biological process of creating bone. Now, Vempati says that he wasn't very good at spelling until middle school. I find that very hard to believe.
Okay. Yeah, in now he's a ripe old 8th grader.
That's right.
I've been spelling for 2 years.
In case you're wondering, the Scripps National Spelling Bee is the nation's largest and longest running educational program. It was first held, I love this, 101 years ago.
Wow.
On June 17th, 1925, just 9 kids in the competition. This year, there will be 247 participants. The semifinals will be broadcast on ION tomorrow night from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. Then the finals will air again on ION from 7 to 9 on Thursday. It can also be streamed on spellingbee.com. Now you all know what I will be doing on Wednesday and Thursday night of this week.
I love the spelling bee. I'll be honest, I only watch the clips and the highlights.
Oh, I love
But
it.
the stress, I love seeing young children so stressed out. They know what it's like to be an adult.
It is high-stakes stuff. I mean,
It is very high stakes.
It is.
And you can see the parents who are very involved.
Yes.
And it's like any sort of competition parent.
Yeah.
They're there and they're sweating over every letter, and
Yes.
they've trained with their kids, and these kids have
Yes.
hours
My
and
mom would
hours
tell
and
you that
hours.
is absolutely the case. She knew the words just as well as I did when I was a state spelling
did
bee
you-
champion. I didn't go to
Wait
Scripps,
a minute,
but
hold
I was a
on.
state
Hold
spelling
on,
bee champion.
hold on. State spelling bee champion for South Dakota?
Yeah.
What year? What age? Not what year.
I would have been
What age?
4th, 5th, like 6th grade, somewhere in there.
6th grade.
Yeah, I won this citywide a couple of times and then made
Did you
it
go
to
to
state.
Scripps?
No, never went to Scripps. No, there were people far smarter than me.
But you not in the state?
But I did the city a couple of times, and then and I won the city a couple of times, and then made it to state. Got out fairly early in those competitions, and then went on in state one year. But no, it was spelling bee champion.
I am an atrocious speller. Yeah.
Thank you, Parker.
How does that just come out?
Mr. Plow King, by
There's
the way.
always a story with Jamie. There, no matter what we say, no matter what one of us has an experience, Jamie's got another one.
We did a spelling bee competition once on this show. Mr.
Oh yeah, and you won. Didn't
That's
you?
right. Mr. Plow King says he was in the geography bee and he made it to state twice. So see, thank you, Mr. Plow
Wow.
King.
State champion though. Why didn't they advance you?
Because I don't know if it was the one that we did the scripts with, right? Like
Okay,
there's several different versions, and
That's
I
a
don't
pretty
know.
big deal.
I don't know if it was.
Did they
the
give
one,
you a buffalo or something as a prize? What do
I
you
don't
win
know.
in
I
South
got some
Dakota when you're
stupid
the
little
state
trophy
spelling
or
bee?
something. I don't know. It was like a little trophy.
Well,
But
see, that I would have remembered.
I don't know if it was like this wasn't. I don't think
Cash?
this was the
Was there
one.
any cash
no,
involved?
No, this wasn't the one that went to the scripts because there were a couple different
Okay.
spelling bee versions in the
Pretty good.
state.
Still pretty good.
But yeah,
Do you remember the word you won with?
no. I was like, I
Oh.
think I was like a 5th grader. No, I don't remember the
That's
word.
pretty cool.
But
There you go.
and I know this one wasn't scripts because they actually let us have paper, right? Scripts, that's the thing
Oh,
with
so you could
scripts.
write.
Yeah, because with scripts you can't write, right? Like you have to
Right,
do it
yeah,
on your
yeah.
hand. With this one, you got to actually have, there was a little table with paper and a pencil so you could write it right
Oh,
there.
really?
So that's why, I know that's why it wasn't scripts because
All
you
right, I
could
know that-
actually
yeah, I
write
see the
word.
Scripps kids
Yeah.
doing it on their hand.
You
or
can't
their
write
arm,
in
and I'm like,
scripts. No, we got
what
to
are you
actually
doing?
write our word out on paper. But it was the same
Oh,
principle,
okay.
but we got to write it. So that's why I know it wasn't actually
All right.
this. I mean, if honestly, if I'd made it to the script spelling bee, do you think I would have been quiet about that for this long? Come on now.
Maybe you were just you hang on to something. I'm sure I've got a couple in my holster that I haven't unsheathed yet.
Not if it was the
Wait,
scripts. Like I will be making popcorn. I'm not kidding. Wednesday and Thursday night watching this
That's
because I
pretty
love it.
cool.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
So did you know what Asa Factory meant?
I knew what the like the beginning should be because everything in English has like with the asa. I knew that had something to do with creation and the bones, but because like osteoporosis, right?
Right.
So yeah, you got to combine it all that way. That's why you spell like that. But I
now,
wasn't
all right,
sure.
since you're a spelling bee champion,
Okay.
is it a stall tactic when they say when they keep asking for a definition or to use it in a sentence or its origins? Is that a stall tactic?
Yes, sometimes. Or sometimes there's multiple, they're thinking of maybe another word that it could be. And so they're trying to get the origin to know exactly how they should hone it in. These kids are brilliant. So they're, they're absolutely
I know.
brilliant.
I've watched Aquila and the Bee. I know how smart they are.
They're brilliant human beings. So, yes.
All right, we didn't know we were going to verge into spelling bee talk, but we did. But we still have a couple minutes for the big story. About 200 acres protected along Lake Superior have created the longest national scenic trail. The National Park Service has acquired 213 acres along the south shore of Lake Superior in Iron County for the North Country National Scenic Trail. It's the nation's longest scenic trail. The trail stretches through 4,800 miles across 8 states from North Dakota to Vermont, with about 1,500 miles still unfinished. Officials say the newly acquired property will allow about 3 miles of the trail to be moved off roads and onto scenic natural land. The property will connect Saxon Harbor County Park to the Montreal River and includes shoreline along Lake Superior and Superior Falls. Conservation groups say the effort to protect the land have been underway for nearly 2 decades. The land was purchased using federal Land and Water Conservation Fund money with additional support from conservation nonprofits and foundations. So that sounds
very cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
The more natural places to go, the better, I say.
And by the way, this is good for the economy. If you're worried, federal data shows outdoor recreation, a record $12 billion in Wisconsin just in 2024. 100,000 jobs, too, statewide. So,
all right.
It's good
Maybe
stuff.
you're doing that for your summer job. What were your favorite summer jobs? Gen Z is changing things up a little bit. We'll get to that after this. It is Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
From Lake Superior to Lake Michigan, this is Wisconsin's Morning Conversation. Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:22 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it. Hopefully you're having a great start to your Tuesday. Lots of sunshine, some warmer temperatures today. Going to definitely feel like summer over the next couple of days.
Yeah.
As temperatures around the state teeter right around 80 to close to 90 here in Madison. Our high today, I think, is like 86, 87. So, yeah, it's a little humid out now today, a little sticky. It's
and
summer.
Please do us all a favor. Don't complain how hot it is today, because 2 weeks ago we were bringing in our plants because of frost warnings.
That's right.
So let's just take it and go, all right, whatever, it's crazy. Yeah, isn't it weird? Now, the weekend it'll be in the 70s, but just take it as it comes.
And remember, by July, we could have triple digits, and then you're really going to be complaining. So
That's right. And, if you don't have air conditioning, find a cool spot.
Yes.
And
yes.
that's why today after the show, I'm taking my car because my air conditioner is broken. And I'm looking at tomorrow's forecast. I'm like, you know what?
Fix it.
I can't keep. I've been putting it off because I was like, well, it's still cool. I don't need my air conditioner. I look, I go, ooh, 90. Yeah, I don't want to sit in a car with that. There's few things that I draw the line on now. And I used to pride myself in that I wouldn't turn the air conditioner on forever. Because maybe you heard this growing up too, Jamie. If you use air conditioner, it wastes more gas. Yeah. Which is dumb because if you have all the windows open, you're creating more drag on your car.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so now, oh man, the car especially, but even the house, gets about 85. Well, let's turn on the
Our air's been on for forever. And I've talked about this. My husband being the youper that he is, about 65, 70, that's about when he can't handle it anymore. Wow. And he's like, nope, we're uncovering. And we usually set it around 69 and just let it sit there. So if it kicks in, it kicks in. It's not
69,
like
69, that's cold.
I wear a sweatshirt and sweatpants in our house all summer long. Literally.
Wow.
Unless I have to go outside, then I change.
72, 73 is where we keep it.
No. 69, 70. Sometimes we'll verge on 70 if I'm freezing to death and I'm complaining too much. Then we change it. Oh, no. He's a youper through and through. They don't do well with the heat.
No, and it's going to be time to turn those ACs on. But it's also summertime, and if you're Well, if you're anybody really, you had a summer job.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I started getting summer jobs when I was 13. Most of us had all kinds of summer jobs, and it was the traditional route. You'd find maybe your parents knew somebody, you'd get a job there, or you'd go and you'd get it at a fast food place or a pool and I caddied for my first few years till I got into college. But Gen Z is doing everything different. Parker, you're Gen Z, right?
I think. I'm pretty sure. I don't. That's
oh,
what
yeah,
I
you're
assume.
between 17 and 25.
Yes.
Okay, I am. There
You're
we go.
a Gen
So you're
Zer.
Gen Z.
Okay.
Yes.
So now, instead of going out and getting more traditional jobs, Gen Z is going to the apps. They're doing like Uber and DoorDash and stuff. And even some people who are older than Gen Z are doing this for their extra job. But especially for the young people, instead of going to work at McDonald's or Culver's or something, they are turning to the apps. So 855-75-CIVIC, we're just curious.
Yeah.
What was your favorite summer job? Because some people had really cool summer jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I said, I caddied when I was a kid. Then when I got into college, I worked on a loading dock for a couple summers, and then I was a bouncer at a nightclub.
Oh, okay.
That was the fun one.
That's, I mean, obviously, if you're about, I mean, yeah, you get the nightclub vibes and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
well,
man,
getting paid
come
to
on.
sit there, right? That's the best part.
Well, you're also
you're
also
working.
getting paid to fight. You're
I
also
was
getting
just
paid
gonna
to
say
meet
that
ladies.
too, right? So
Getting paid to drink
let's
afterward.
be realistic. When you're a young dude and you're a bouncer, the ladies come more forthright as well. Like that's a gig.
Not to all the bouncers. The really jacked bouncers that
Okay.
was happening.
All right.
The more doughy bouncers didn't really have the. I don't think I've ever described myself as doughy before, but I think that's more apt.
Like, I will say my kid is 22 and he's got a couple of jobs part-time, but then sometimes when he needs extra cash, he can DoorDash. So he'll pull up a gig job for just if he needs a little extra cash for something and do it for a couple of nights and then he'll get it and then he doesn't do it again for a while. So he does the gig work periodically, but
Well, and it makes sense. The numbers show that age group are the fastest growing group on the 6 major delivery apps, according to this Apptopia.
Well, and why wouldn't they be? Jobs right now are not easy to come by for this generation. Like they're just not, especially if you're a recent college grad. It is rough, and so they're doing whatever they can to make a little extra money. In fact, 90,000 to 135,000 young Wisconsinites actually participate in gig work in this state.
Wow.
In this
Parker,
Gen Z
you got
category.
a side hustle?
I guess I would call my camera operating with the Mallards.
Yeah.
I think that it's small enough of a thing. Yeah. That when I was in high school, I did a lot of coaching. I did a lot of tennis coaching during the summers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
I forget you were a tennis
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah.
Will you come in your whites one day?
Yeah. With your racket and your knee highs.
Oh God.
Did you wear the Bobby Riggs big terry cloth headband?
Yeah.
No, with the headband guy.
No? Okay.
Not,
You
continue.
know who Bobby
This is
Riggs
for a
was?
different time.
I was a tour guide at the world's only corn palace. That was
sounds
my
like
summer
a fun
gig.
job.
It was until about end of July, early August when you'd had your fill of tourists because there were some days we could get 6,000 to 10,000 people through the corn palace in a day. And literally, and were considered slowish days. We had a counter, so everybody had to go through and all of that kind of stuff. And then we also gave a tour an hour at the world's only corn palace, talking about how the redecoration process is. And then I also helped manage the gift shop across the street and on the main floor. So when I wasn't actually giving tours, then I was down on the main floor, but it was a fun job. You got to meet a lot of really interesting people. You got to meet some really not great people, including old dudes who hit on really young girls a lot. So that was kind of weird and creepy. But the overall job itself was fun, and I did it for 4 years. 4 years, I think.
That does sound like a good time.
Then I got into radio.
Well, there you go. So the Corn Palace launched you into another
That's
questionable
right.
career.
That's right.
All right. Well, that does sound like a good one. All right. When we come back, come on, Representative Stile, we got to talk. We got to talk.
Local voices, statewide impact. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:35 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Hey, Mr. Plow King, as we were talking about the Corn Palace, sent photos of his dog in front of the Corn Palace. There it is. Those are the ugly turrets, though, on the front. They used to have these turrets on the front.
Yeah.
And they used to be painted to look with they were different colors, and then they changed them to these all metal things that are not nearly as welcoming and cool. But, hey, you do what you got to do. But thank you, Mr. Plow King, because I see a
All
puppers.
right, I'm sorry. We're going to talk about Brian Stile
We are.
crypto and all that. But I'm looking at Mr. Plow King's. This is not at all what I pictured the Corn Palace to look like.
Oh, okay.
This, I don't know what I pictured.
Corn.
Well, they can't.
I was expecting just hay bales. I've never been there.
It's
so
the Civic Center for Mitchell, South Dakota. It's where Dakota Wesleyan University and all the high schools play. There's also tournaments, basketball tournaments that take place in this in the Corn Palace. There's also concerts that take place in the Corn Palace. And the reason that the corn can't go all the way to the bottom, Parker, to answer your question, tour guide here, it used to long, long ago, and then fire codes came about.
So what
We have to be safe. Okay.
like what makes it tour worthy other than a regular stadium? Like,
it doesn't. It's not.
Oh.
Which is
So why do we stop there? Why I haven't, and now I'm like, should I?
Because if you are going to the Black Hills of South Dakota,
Of course.
basically Mitchell to Chamberlain along the interstate is about an hour. From Chamberlain to the Black Hills, there's nothing to do. So
Right.
you stop at the Corn Palace, you get some snacks. It's a kitschy, it's cool. You take a photo in front of it, and if you love art, here's what I will say: it is really cool because it's like a giant paint by number. And so an artist actually comes up with the designs you see on the outside. Those have to be approved by a committee, and then those designs are then rendered onto tar paper at a very large scale. And so it's like paint by number because it's all corn,
Okay.
it's wheat, it's sorghums, it's anything that's natively grown to South Dakota. And
Okay, because
Indian
I
corn.
see, I'm looking
Yep.
at this picture, and I can see it looks like kind of like what you'd see at
Yeah.
the Rose Bowl parade.
Yeah, so
you know?
it's all done with corns and grains and things that grow in South
Okay.
Dakota, and it's all produced by South Dakota farmers, which is why some years in South Dakota it is in jeopardy of being redesigned if there's a drought season.
Wow.
So it is kind of cool in that way if you do love art, because it is essentially a giant paint by number, and each ear of corn is then sliced in half or cut at different angles so that it can get the shadows and make sure that all of those images appear as the artist intended them.
Wow.
Yeah,
You can take the tour guide out of South Dakota, but you can't take South Dakota out of the tour
you
guide.
cannot.
That
You
is,
cannot.
holy cow.
It's a
No, it
process.
looks- Again, it's one of those. I've driven through that
Mm-hmm.
area. The only place I've stopped is Wall Drugs.
Sure.
I haven't stopped anywhere else till I get to where I'm going, except for gas.
If you
But I've
thought Wall
seen,
Drug was an
obviously-
experience.
Wall Drug was worth the stop. I may stop there again next time I
My
drive
favorite
past.
part of working at the Corn Palace was always the older gentlemen who came in, obviously on vacation, in their camper with probably their lovely spouse, and they'd come in and they'd say to us, "Sure is hot out there today. Are you going to get a lot of popcorn?" And then, of course, as tour guides, we'd have to laugh like it was the first time we'd heard that joke ever, when in actuality, it was probably about the 100th time. And just that day, we had also heard that joke. But, people, we
right.
endeared ourselves to the masses.
Well, listen, we've learned about spelling bees today. We've learned more about the Corn Palace because I don't care. In Iowa, you see the billboards for the Corn
Yeah,
Palace.
absolutely.
And all over, and it's like, and again, I only pictured it as like, I see all the art made out of
Yeah.
the crops. I just pictured it as like a big building made of hay bales with maybe a maze.
No,
I had no
it
idea
is-
what it
is
was.
an epic undertaking every single year. Mr. Plow King, thank you so much for these photos, because showing like Bob Barker on the side in this particular year with the big
There's
wheel.
a jackalope. Oh, that's
yes.
Wall Drug.
I mean, you can. You can see the different shadows though if you ever get an
Yeah.
opportunity. It is really cool, the artistry that goes into it. It is a giant civic center. It is a tourist trap, but you know what? It's free to get in. So if you just want, to cool
Yeah.
off for a moment, walk around and stretch your legs, you're not going to pay much unless you
Well,
want a
this
souvenir.
show gives you a little bit of everything.
It
That's
does.
the beauty of it, and
It does.
it's how It sounds like a fun little stop. It sounds all right. You know what I don't understand? How politicians are able to
Enrich
make all this.
themselves.
It's talking about side gigs from before.
Yeah.
Politician just has to be a politician, and the side gig seems to come to them. A little background: on April 1st of last year, financial firm First Trust published a prospectus saying it was starting an exchange-traded fund focusing on Bitcoin and calling for interested investors. The fund allows investors to receive a return on Bitcoin. Coincidentally, because you know I'm a big believer in coincidences, on the same day, according to campaign filings with the Federal Election Commission, First Trust CEO Jim Bowen gave $100,000 to Brian Stile's Victory Fund. The Stile Victory Fund is the political action committee associated with Wisconsin Republican Congressman Brian Stile. He's a member of the House Finance Committee and the chairman of the subcommittee Digital Assets, Financial Technology, and Artificial Intelligence, which discusses proposed legislation on cryptocurrency, among other things. I love it when a plan works out.
For certain
That
people,
seems odd.
yes.
Would you say, Jamie, that after reviewing this and again, I'm not making any claims. I'm just drawing lines and
Of course.
pondering. I'm not stating anything as fact. I am pondering.
Well, and let's be clear. Even if you're connecting dots here and you're thinking about this, Brian Stile would not be the first person to serve in government
would
to
not.
benefit off of the knowledge that he has. It's actually a major problem on both sides of the aisle. But no, I mean, this would make sense because the crypto industry has been one of the biggest political spenders in recent elections. Cycles. And in Wisconsin, a lot of that support, ironically, has gone towards Representative Stile, especially during the 2024 and this current 2026 election cycle. So, I mean, it is interesting. I also think it's fascinating that Stile himself has promoted cryptocurrency and blockchain technology during speeches, interviews, and even conferences. In fact, if you remember back to 2024 during the national convention that was held in Milwaukee, he discussed future uses of blockchain technology in federal elections and financial systems.
Well, of course, people asked him about his relationship with this guy from First Trust. And the representative said, quote, "I have relationships with a large number of people who I met on occasion." He added that he met with electrical and painters union members. "I had a group of truckers who came in and talked to me about federal regulation. I talked to a whole array of people, from folks who come to our town halls to folks who stop by our office like the painters union did earlier this week." Well, did the painters union then happen? Did you pass any legislation on paint that someone could have helped you with?
Or
I don't
help the
think
truckers
so.
Or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, these are
You
fair
didn't bring
questions.
down diesel prices.
These are fair questions to ask, I think.
Yeah, again, just asking questions. Just trying to figure out if there is a connection.
Right.
We're not saying there is, but could there be a connection between passing some sort of legislation and making it easier for these Bitcoin exchanges, and then suddenly the same day getting a big donation?
Because I also think it's fascinating that Brian Stile goes out of his way to say that he's personally never owned cryptocurrency and he's never owned Bitcoin, but then puts the caveat while in office, saying he made that decision specifically to avoid the appearance of, anything improper while overseeing crypto legislation.
And the fact that maybe he doesn't have the crypto, but they the crypto industry has paid almost $1 million, over $750,000 in media spending for Stile.
Right. Yeah.
So
He also helped. He also helped, if you remember back to 2025, just last year, and I know there's been a lot of things that have happened from then to now, so let me refresh your memory. It was actually Representative Stile who helped advance the Genius Act, which was signed into law by President Trump just last year, which created federal rules for stable coins and cryptocurrency oversight. Now, let's also remember that it's also the president and his family and his inner circle that has also benefited off cryptocurrency and people being able to invest into the campaign and businesses and things like that because of this Genius Act.
And there's Trump coin. Don't forget Trump
coin.
Oh,
gosh, I forgot about Trump. I know.
Oh, don't forget Trump coin. Come on.
I got so enamored by the Trump phone that is now being mailed to people that I forgot all about the Trump coin. I forgot.
You can't forget any of the merch. That's the best part about being president is all the merch.
No.
Because we've seen it. We've seen it all. Oh, wait, no, we've never seen it.
We've never seen this kind of merch.
Never seen that before. All right, anyway, back to Ryan Stile, who is just advocating for crypto, advocating for blockchain, like you said. So again, Jamie, I don't know what to make of any of it. It doesn't pass the smell test. Let's just say that.
If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, there's a pretty good chance it's going to be a duck, right?
And he pulled the old, well, I don't control where the money comes from for the media buys.
Right.
I don't know who does it. We follow all the rules, but I can't control where the money comes from. He also says that, when asked about the potential conflict of interest, he's like, the rules are there. We just, everybody, his quote was, the rules and restrictions are put in place for everyone running for federal office. There are limits and restrictions that are put in place to prevent such a conflict. So we follow all the federal rules.
Crypto is weird, right? Crypto is one of those
Crypto's still the Wild West.
It is. It's gray, and you don't know exactly where it's coming from. You can smudge the lines and blur those lines a lot with crypto just because of the fact that it is such a gray area. And I think this is a bigger conversation, though, right? Because, okay, we can pick on Brian Stile about crypto, but again, and we've talked about it on this program, this would not be the first time we've mentioned it. He is not the only one in office benefiting off this type of knowledge. And when you start having Democrats, Republicans, anybody who is making their own financial choices based on the knowledge that they get firsthand because of these committee positions and their position in government, that's unfair. That's an unfair advantage, and using your position as a congressperson to benefit yourself. And this is why your congress people end up leaving office as millionaires, because they're benefited from this knowledge and using it to their advantage when the rest of us can't.
And in my opinion, this is again my opinion. If you are making things easier for a company and it's not the old days where you get an envelope full of cash, but you get a donation. And the donation amount is within the limits, but it's hefty. And then there's another pack that deals with something else. And there's another huge chunk of money donated for other things. You can disavow knowledge of it if you think people will believe that. Or you can... You got to realize that we're not dumb. I know everybody thinks that the American public is dumb, and a lot of us are. But there's enough people who look at this and go, dude, that's unethical at best.
And if you're Ron Johnson, you say it has to be done because living on a congressperson's salary is just not enough money.
I'd love to try to live on that 177.
I was going to say six figures.
It's Washington, D.C. It's boo-hoo. This is the life you picked. Right. All right. Well, listen, you find $30,000 in a Wawa bathroom. What do?
Fairly solid and better than expected. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:52 right now. Hopefully you're having a great start to your Tuesday morning. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Civic Media Network. We'll get the words out yet. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. All right, we want to know. Be honest. Use a fake name. You text in from wherever. We don't care. You find $30,000 in a bathroom. Do you keep the cash or do you try to hunt down the owner? Well, Parker is amazed by this story because it happens in Florida, but it is not, as you said, Parker, a Florida man type of story.
Yeah. I'm a little upset.
Well, it gives me hope. A little bit of hope.
That's one way to look at it.
In humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, and trust me, Parker, at this point in my life, I need as many little specks of hope as I can get.
Fair.
So this one, first of all, the man walked into a Wawa bathroom. If you have never been to a Wawa, I weep for you.
Wawas are the best.
Wawa makes, I'm sorry, Quick Trip, you know I love you.
Oh, no.
No. Wawa is, Parker, here's the thing with Wawa. It's a big gas station convenience store, but they have a deli where they make their sandwiches fresh. And the sandwiches and the coffee and the sweet rolls and stuff at Wawa are top tier.
It's basically like a city unto itself.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, Wawas are crazy. They have their own entrance, their own exits. They get like they become like their own little hub on the outskirts of a city, mostly for trucks, right?
Sounds like a good spot.
Well, no, I mean Wawa's everywhere. It's not like Buc-ee's.
Yeah. No,
it's not like a Buc-ee's that takes up all that land. It's just I mean they truck stop but they're amazing. They can be in the middle of the cities too, and just like a gas station thing. But the difference is their food. And I will say that the sandwiches and I love Buc-ee's unapologetically.
Love Buc-ee's.
Wawa is better. All right, so Wawa, this guy goes into the bathroom at Wawa. Now, I have not carried a fanny pack since the 90s, but I used to carry a fanny pack.
They're coming
and if
back.
I know, and I kind of like them because they keep your pockets free and everything. Hands-free, nothing in your pockets.
Mom's
it's great.
Best friend.
I know, but then when you have to go to the bathroom, you got to unclip them. And what do? You clip them onto the handicap rail in the stall. Somebody must have done this because this guy went in. He found a black fanny pack that contained proceeds from selling his Pokemon collectibles. Wow. $30,023 in cash, according to the police report.
That's quite a collection.
Yes. So he left Wawa. He's driving to Coral Springs, Florida. Oh, this is the guy. This is the guy who left it there. He realized he had left his fanny pack in the bathroom. He went back. Shocker, it was gone.
Yeah.
Well, duh. He called the Riviera Beach Police Department. That day, officers opened a grand theft investigation. Can you call it? Well, I guess you can't call it theft.
30 grand.
Somebody took it. Well, they identified the suspect a few days later, called him. He said he'd been trying to return the money to the owner. The man, Louis Salivar, said that after finding the fanny pack on a handicap bar in the bathroom, he searched Wawa in its parking lot multiple times for the man who was in the bathroom before him. He remembered the man had dark curly hair and was wearing beige sandals, blue jeans, and a white shirt. That's way too much observation for a men's bathroom.
It is a lot of observation. And why, if you were walking around with that kind of cash and you saw this person get in a car, why would you not turn it into the police? Like, he was trying to do the right thing. I'm not denying that.
Right.
But why would you not, that kind of money, turn it just automatically over to police? Were you ever going to see it?
Or hand it to the guy behind the counter.
Right.
You go, hey,
Right. Like, the guy
do?
wasn't going to change his clothes. He was always going to be in his blue jeans, his white shirt, and his beige sandals, which sounds like a really boring outfit, by the way. But anyway.
Plus, I'm really troubled that you're taking in that much detail in the men's room.
Right.
Parker, you ever leave a stall and then scope out the drip and somebody else's look in the bathroom?
No.
No.
Not too
The whole
interested in
goal of
anyone
the men's room
else
is
in the
no
men's
eye
room.
contact.
Yeah.
Go
it
in,
is.
take care of your business, and get out.
See, so different in the women's room because women are eye each other up and down to see.
No,
Yeah, that sounds like a much more pleasant experience in the men's room, honestly.
Yeah, no, we don't want. There's no time for socializing. If somebody says something in the bathroom to me, I think they're a predator, and I'm not the kind of guy who's being predated. But it's just like, don't talk to me in here. It's
weird.
No.
Nobody wants to conversate over a urinal and a urinal cake, right?
And don't come out knowing exactly what I was wearing and what my shoes
that's weird.
were.
Maybe he was just being
crazy.
observant because he had all this money that belonged to this guy, so he really wanted to find him, right?
Well, he didn't know
Still
he had
weird.
the money when he knew what this guy was wearing. Because how did he?
Weird. I just don't
Unless-
understand.
The only thing is, if every stall is taken and you're waiting, and then the guy finally comes out,
But that doesn't usually happen in a men's room for that long. Women's bathrooms, yes.
It depends. Yeah.
Women's bathrooms, always. You always have some sort of line, even if you don't think there will be one. But in men's, it's a little less likely that you have that much time to actually like get every detail of that person. Plus, men don't seem to be that observant. I mean, I'm not trying to generalize, but men just don't seem that observant.
Well, you may not be trying, Jamie, but you did a heck of a job doing it. Salazar said he never thought of keeping the money, which doesn't ring true. Now, I give him credit for giving the money back, but to never think about keeping it, I'll be 100% honest.
You'd have a moment, right?
I would have thought long and hard about keeping it.
Is that why he kept it and did turn it into the police? Right? Is that like why he kept it? Because he's telling me he had that he didn't have any moment where he wanted to keep it. You still didn't turn it over to anybody. Like you were going to go on a search for this dude by yourself. So
right.
I would guess in human nature, even if it was a subconscious decision, in the back of your mind, we're like, well, if I don't find it,
we all want to think that we are highly ethical and wonderful people and would do exactly what the good book would have us do. But in the dark recesses of our mind, if you found $30,000 in a bathroom,
there'd be a moment.
It'd be hard.
There'd be a moment in your head where you'd be like, finders keepers kind of moment.
Yeah. I mean, if the guy's there and you chase him, of course, then. But if you do that, and then you can't find them, and you go,
ultimately,
right.
I would do the right thing, but there'd be a moment.
Well, Jamie is more virtuous. We got to go. It's time. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Brian Noonan.
I'm Jamie Martinson. Hopefully you have a wonderful Tuesday. Thank you for listening to the Civic Media Network.